Hi everyone, welcome to Charm of the Wilderness. This is a special bonus episode, which is a travelogue about a trip that I took with my family when we went to pick up our brand new camper van. We decided to do a little road trip and went to some national monuments and state parks, and this is kind of how I will be doing my travelogues in the future because I thought audio might be kind of a fun way for you all to hear about my reflections in real time. So I hope you enjoy this bonus episode, and we'll hopefully be back for a second season in the next several months, but I will definitely be posting bonus episodes as I do these little trips and vacations. Enjoy! Okay, we just got to Bruneau Dunes State Park, and it is gorgeous and out in the middle of nowhere, and I love it. It's a state park I had never heard of. I had just looked it up on Google or something and found it, and they have an observatory, and so we're going to go see a planetary presentation in a few minutes, and I will report back. But it struck me as we were coming out here how many state parks there are and how few I know about. And when I had told people where we were going, they were like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I think it's the same when I go to Oregon. It's like, I don't know how many state parks there are. Anyway, I'll report back after we watch the stars and go to the planetarium. Okay, we just got done with the planetarium and the observatory stuff, and it was pretty damn cool. We started out with programming that kind of taught us about the ways light pollution can harm wildlife and community, and then also how it can affect human health. But one of the things that the facilitator said that I really loved is that she said, keeping our night sky heritage is important because it's the one thing that can connect us. And it just made me think about, I've been riding high on the whole moon Artemis 2 mission lately, and it just, I don't know, this is kind of silly, but I got kind of teary just because it is like that, so much a part of the heritage of human beings, of indigenous peoples, of our ancestors, and how they navigated the world through the stars. And I know nothing about them, and just seeing them even in their incredible brightness is awe-inspiring. And then we got to go look into several telescopes. We saw Jupiter and 4 of Jupiter's moons, and we got to see this gas cloud, which was pretty cool. So I can only imagine what it's like to be an astronomer who studies all of this. And I see pictures of galaxies and all of this, but seeing it kind of in real life, or at least in real time, is pretty spectacular. We had our first night in the camper van last night. There's some things we have to learn, but it was awesome. So much warmer than any tent, and just cozy. And we woke up to this gorgeous sky, and all of the programming last night at the observatory was so cool. It goes to show why we need public lands, why we need state parks, because the education around the dark sky places and light pollution is such a treasure and so important to think about. And I feel like if we lose these kind of places, we lose so much. I do wish, and there might have been, we missed the first part of the presentation. I do wish there was a little bit more about the indigenous connection to the skies and the constellations, but it was great. It was stuff that I hadn't even really thought of or learned about, and I feel really lucky. So we're currently on day 3 of our little 5-day road trip, and yesterday we stopped by Craters of the Moon. We kind of took a detour from Bruneau Dunes State Park and went east to Craters of the Moon, also in Idaho, which is a national monument, and then back to Boise and stayed the night in Boise. But on this little sweet detour, we got to, I don't know if I've ever been to a national monument specifically before, so I wasn't exactly sure how similar to a national park it was, but it seemed kind of the same, more or less, in the sense that they had a little visitor center with the gift shop, and they also had the Junior Ranger program, which is pretty awesome. So Finch got to do the Junior Ranger book. So a couple weeks ago, I was reading a book that the author talked about visiting craters of the moon, and her description was so bleak. I wondered if I had made the wrong choice to put it on our itinerary. I get that in some ways it doesn't have all of the kind of objective grandness or quote beauty that so many of the famous national parks have. What the settlers of yore called it, the white settlers, let's be very specific here, all of them naming it, evoking desolation. They called the dried lava, black vomit, and some of the areas Devil's Playground. But the original peoples, the Shoshone-Bannock people, saw beyond the black, desolate seeming landscape, of course. There was an interpretive sign. The Shoshone-Bannock people called the area Tenamboyi, or Antelope Trail. So I read this on an interpretive sign, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But they described how the Tena, the antelope, guided the Shoshone-Bannock people to safety during the time of the quote flowing fire, which they called Waihia Ogwaide. So this was passed down through oral history about the ancestry of the area. I learned this, as I said, from an interpretive sign along the Devil's Orchard Nature Trail, which is kind of the only major hike that we did there. So it was pretty cool. Apparently, the Trump administration hadn't got their hands on those signs because the short path, which was, probably less than a half a mile, the whole path seemed kind of designed as an outdoor cultural museum, and it was all of the interpretive signs and everything related to it was created in partnership with the Shoshone-Bannock tribes, which they noted on them. It was, honestly, it was the most in-depth, indigenous-led interpretive program I've seen in my recent national park travels. So that was pretty cool to see, and like how much we learned in such a short period of time. And paired with the Junior Ranger and park map, I could clearly get a deeper picture of the place and the area beyond the kind of desolate picture that the names and the description that I'd heard in the past, evoked. I've come to love the desert in these like desolate seeming places because life is found in all these unexpected places. There are small plants and growth pushing their way through and between the lava rocks, which is just, I don't know, I always find that amazing. There are the limber trees that provide food for a lot of the wildlife. And the limber trees are so cool because they're kind of, the branches feel so crooked and kind of fairy tale-like. And there are a lot of living limber trees, limber pines, and then also some dead ones that just, I don't know, they just look super cool and have this kind of gorgeous architecture to them. And then also the lichens are incredibly important, and I would not have even noticed or thought of them had one of the interpretive signs not pointed it out. But the lichens actually are some of the most important aspects of the health of the ecosystem there, apparently, because the lichens break down the rock and feed the soil with nutrients, and so all of the kind of plant life depends on the lichens. And so the lichens have decreased in the area because, I don't know, climate change, people, human involvement, etc. So it was just, I don't know, I think it was really gorgeous and not desolate at all. Okay, now that I've said all of that, I have to point out how cool it is, just the superlatives that Craters of the Moon represent. So it is one of the best preserved basaltic volcanism in the world, according to the interwebs. Today, the monument, the Craters of the Moon National Monument, which was established about 101 years ago, is around 740,000 acres of federal land that is managed by the Bureau of Land Management and the National Park Service. And the eruptions seem to have taken place between 15,000 and 2,000 years ago. And I think that's probably when a lot of the stories from the Shoshone-Bannock people who've been there for millennia have experienced and have a lot of this knowledge passed down through oral traditions, is that it's a pretty new eruption. In fact, the Great Rift is what it's under, is one of the youngest examples of volcanic activity in this region. So it's just pretty dang cool. I think one of the lessons from this is don't sleep on the national monuments. They are awesome. And, we were only there for, maybe like an hour at most, but we got a lot out of it. It was beautiful. We did a little short, I'll call it a walk, because it was definitely not a hike. And we learned so much in that period of time that I appreciate it. I appreciate that these places exist. We're back home. We decided to end our trip a little early because I realized that our destinations today were about a third of the way back home, and so it just made more sense to do that. So it's kind of nice to be back home after a short little trip. But today on our way back, we visited the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument. We were staying near John Day in Central Oregon. And I've been wanting to go with Finch for a while, ever since his obsession with geology emerged a couple years ago. And a friend and I have been talking about doing this, and so I was excited to finally be able to go. The fossil beds are in a region that's apparently a huge part of the state of central southeastern Oregon and makes up an area that contains about 40 million year record of plants and animals. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's well preserved, and I guess it's one of the best examples of these preserved plants and animals in fossil form. And it kind of strikes me as the perfect example of the National Park Service as essentially preserving living museums. I kind of talk about this with some friends a lot, how the national parks are not necessarily these like untouched wilderness places. They're preserved places to be like museums. They're kind of like theme parks, but in different ways. And so at John Day, at the fossil beds, this is a perfect example of this, because you can check out examples of the fossils in the big and really well executed exhibit in the visitor center, named after Thomas Condon, who was kind of the first paleontologist back in the day who discovered these artifacts. And they even have labs that the public can view through a large window. No one was there while we were there, but it was pretty cool. You can see all the tools and the things that they use. And while you're not necessarily going to be digging for fossils, which would be cool, you do get to see these fossils and the different eras that they represent. And then you go out into the 3 units with kind of a sense of what is out there. I kept thinking, underneath all of this dirt and stone and rock and clay are preserved fossils. So we checked out 2 of the 3 units. There are 3 units, the Sheeprock and Painted Hills and the Clarno unit. The Clarno unit was a little bit more out of the way, so we decided not to do that, and I'll just have to come back. Honestly, before going, I had no idea of the geography of this place before we got there. I had heard of the Painted Hills and the fossil beds, but thought they were 2 distinct things. Rather, they're actually one big thing that are separated into 3 different units that are pretty far apart from each other. And the Sheep Rock unit is where the visitor center is, and it's the furthest east. And so that's the direction we were coming from. We were camping near John Day, Oregon. And so we came in that way. And so we started there and then went to the Painted Hills and then drove back up north to come back home to Portland. And we did a very, very short hike called Island in Time Trail through the blue-green Badlands in the Sheep Rock unit. And these, you can see these Badlands, or you can see this blue-green rock when you are coming into the Condon Center. And they're pretty spectacular and inspiring from afar. And it just, again, so many different cool rock formations. But up close, they seem like just an unstable clay. I have no idea how stable or unstable they are, but I suppose they're more fortified than they seem. The Painted Hills also had that kind of delicate look, the red and tan colored striations, which give it that painted look, which are gorgeous, by the way. It really is spectacular. It's like they're these like mounds that form into these kind of like deformed foot-like formations at the bottom. That's how I thought of them when we saw them. But each of the striations, the different colors represent different eras and the mineral deposits during that eras. The interpretive sign there noted that there were pretty forested areas that couldn't feel farther from what the place is now. There were no trees, and it's a super dry desert, and also it was hot. Like, I don't know, we're in mid-April, and it was like 80 degrees while we were there, which is not normal for this time of year. It was like 55 degrees like 3 days before, so that's how things are right now. But it was pretty cool. Now, different from the Craters of the Moon, there was no mention, not at all, of the indigenous tribes that know the area, that have ties to the area. So I just did a little online research just because I think it's important to think about this in every place we go. The region was well known to the Umatilla, the Northern Paiute, the Tenino, Cayuse, and a lot of other tribes. So the John Day River which is a river that intersects with the Columbia River to the north. There were settlements along that John Day River. So a lot of similar tribes that called the Columbia River home also called the John Day River, or what is now called the John Day River home. It's actually called the Maha River, at least to the indigenous people. I was also compelled to learn more about this dude, John Day. I honestly had not thought to think about it because there's a John Day Dam, the John Day River, and then now that I'm going to the fossil beds, I was like, why the hell are these named after what I assumed was some white dude? And it really is some random ass white dude. He was apparently a trapper who was robbed of all of his possessions. He was a trapper from Virginia who came out on some expedition, who cares, whatever it was, and he was robbed of all of his possessions at the confluence of the Maha River where it meets the Columbia River. And I don't know, he made it to safety, I guess, and then eventually found himself in Astoria, which is on the coast, hundreds of miles from the John Day. And apparently he became very well known, and so people / by people I mean white people, settlers, other people who would pass by the area would point out where John Day was robbed, and eventually the river was named after him, which seems so friggin' silly and stupid, and just renamed a river that was already had a name by the indigenous peoples and was used by them. And now the fossil beds are named after him. And I had never heard of this guy, Thomas Condon. John Day had no ties to the area. Anyway, that was interesting. And then we made the trek back home, and that's where I am right now. There are a couple ways that you can come from that area back to Portland. You can go over the Cascades, over Mount Hood, essentially, or you can go up north to the Columbia River, basically following the John Day River to the place where John Day was stripped of all of his shit, and then take the Columbia River home, I-84 home, to Portland. And we opted for the latter because personally, I love the Columbia River Gorge so much, and it is like always the view that we see coming home from when we're visiting my parents in Eastern Washington and Spokane. And it was just like the perfect, with this gorgeous sunny day, and the sun was starting to set and reflecting off the river, and it is just my favorite way to be welcomed home. Like, I get teary thinking about it because I just love the Columbia River Gorge. I think it is one of the most gorgeous places in the world, if not Oregon, of course. And it also struck me how diverse the different ecosystems and climates and environments that we had traveled through just that day, because we came from desert where there really was no trees, and then you're going through these kind of dry, high desert forests, which are really pretty in their own right, and you're going through these canyons, and there are basalt rock formations everywhere, and they're just cool things. And then you get to this kind of desolate area where there's like nothing and no one, and just kind of lots of hills, and then you come upon a bunch of windmills, and then you end up on the Columbia River, and then follow the river home, and then you go get to the gorge area. Like, when you get past Hood River, the climate changes immediately. It is kind of crazy how quickly it changes. It is like dry and fewer trees, and then all of a sudden it is the forest and these huge cliffs and waterfalls and rivers. But anyway, now we are home, and the trip was a success, and I hope you all enjoyed my reflections on it.